Sasha, Lessin. Excuse me, I had to get a drink. And you're listening to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio, Studio B, with our producer, Thomas Becker, Mad Painter, Janet Lessin, and Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. And today our special guest is Nikki Yanke. And I have to pull up the site, running a little behind here. I had to reboot. Dr. Lessin, what would you like to say? We had Nikki on a couple months ago, and then we had rescheduled her for a later date, and then we had some technical difficulties. So we're back again. Nikki was a wonderful guest. I'm pulling up her bio, and it's going to take a little bit of a moment. But anything you want to say about today's show? Nikki is an experiencer, extraordinary, and anyway, Nikki, why don't you come on the show and just tell us about yourself? While I get your bio up. Well, welcome to the show, Nikki Yanke.
Oh, thank
Sorry
you. Thanks. Oh, you're fine. Thanks for having me. Again, it was enjoyable being on your show and talking to you. I am a lifelong experiencer. I never really knew what was happening until probably the last 10 years or so, or maybe even less than that, last few years. I knew I had some psychic abilities and knew I could see spirits, but I didn't realize the extent of it until I got much older. We had talked about quite a bit the last time I was on, and I shared quite a few experiences, so you might have to remind me if I'm repeating again. I don't remember everything that I shared and didn't share.
That's okay if we repeat, because somebody might find this by itself and not listen to the previous one. So we can repeat some things, and don't worry about it. We can't duplicate the last one 100% if we tried. Dr. Lessin, you want to check in and say hi? Make sure you're coming.
Hi, welcome.
Yes. So
Thank you.
I have on our talking points, we're going to talk about paranormal, dimensional, and interdimensional things, the book Skinwalker Ranch and how they are similar to your experiences. And we're going to talk about the book Zohar. We're talking about your experiences. We discuss how growing up in a religious background where the paranormal experiences were demonized. We're going to talk about angels and healing experiences, Christ consciousness energy, and how to heal people. And we explore how what you believe affects your life. Belief requires faith, acceptance. When you open your mind, you're going to see more than what's on the surface. Knowingness reflects that which resonates as personal truth deep down to soul level. And lastly, Nikki's Anunnaki experiences. So wherever you want to start, free flow, what's most relevant to you, and we'll track you and interject now again with questions.
Okay. Well, one of the things I thought I talked about before on a radio show was the paranormal, like things that disappear and sometimes reappear, like objects. I talked about how that happens to me quite often, and it seemed like a lot of people had the same experiences. So I thought it was kind of interesting, and I'm not exactly sure what's happening there. But for example, that was also in the Skinwalker Ranch book, how quite a few of their things would disappear and then reappear in different places. And I've had quite a bit of jewelry disappear. And for example, I had this necklace I had bought at a psychic fair or a holistic fair, and I had put some moldavite and a little bit of amethyst inside. It was like a little locket type thing, and I had wore it only probably 2 or 3 times, and then I couldn't find it anywhere. I searched and searched, could not find it. about a year later, I went into my closet, and right there in front of me on the floor of my closet was this locket. There's no way I could have missed it, for an entire year. Shortly after that, I was meditating, and I had a huge, the size of my palm probably, piece of amethyst sitting on my lap. And I came out of meditation, probably 20, 30 minutes of meditation, and it was missing. It wasn't there. I couldn't find it anywhere. And that one actually came back about a week later, and it came back exactly where I was sitting, right, or on the floor of where I was sitting, within my living room. So it's impossible. There's no way, I could have missed it. I had some earrings, gold earrings, just one disappear. One was taken right out of my ear. I was wearing it. I had just put them on, and my dog nibbled or nudged my ear, and I felt it. When I felt it, it was gone. I had just, I knew I had just had them on. So again, I searched everywhere, could not find it. I never got back. I have not gotten that back, but it's quite a strange phenomenon. I don't know exactly.
I just wonder if you have, there's a way of slipping between time so that you are having all kinds of experiences, and it's in such it seems like no time at all in this embodiment. And I just wonder if there's anything like that. Could it be you that has gone elsewhere and more something like that, or how do you explain it?
Well, that's very possible. I don't know how to explain a lot of the things that happen, but I have a lot of experiences with that sort of thing, and I think I may have brought this up in our last interview, but I was walking my dog, and she has a harness that she wears, and we always walk the exact same way. She walks on my right, and the harness attaches to her chest. The leash attaches to her chest on the harness and comes up along her left side and on my right. And we walk like this every day, for years and years. And it was kind of a weird circumstance that had happened. We were coming out of a parking garage, and I saw up ahead there was a few dogs, and I was thinking, oh, do I want to take her that way? She gets kind of rambunctious. And a car pulled up and motioned for me to hurry up and go. So I decided just to go the opposite direction back the way I came. As soon, within 2 seconds of me going back to the way I came, the direction I came, I looked down, and her harness was tangled or weird. It was coming up her right side, and when I examined it, the leash had gone underneath her harness and back up on the opposite side. So it was what had just happened, right? And then it was within, I think, a half an hour. I called a friend right away because I was like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what just happened. And so as I'm talking to this friend, I take my other little dog, I take that dog home, get my other little dog, and take him down to just the courtyard so he can go potty and run around for a minute. And on our way back, I let him loose, because he doesn't go very fast. I let him loose. I looked behind me, and he was right behind me. I turned around to open my door. I looked back, and he's gone. He's completely gone. I looked down the hallway, towards the elevator. I'm panicking, where could he go in the matter of a second? I opened my apartment door, and there he was, not just on the other side of the door, but in the living room, on the far side of my apartment, already inside the apartment. So those two things happened within a very short amount of time, within a half an hour of each other. It was, and I assumed I had to be jumping dimensions or sliding in and out of dimensions. I'm not even sure how you describe it. But I have a lot of conversations. I had a conversation with my neighbor, and he told me he was moving and getting divorced and moving to an apartment complex across the highway. And we had a 10-minute conversation about this. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sad for you, but whatever. About a month later, I ran into him, and I'm like, so how's it going over at your new apartment? And he looked at me like I had lost my mind. He's like, what are you talking about? I live right here. I always have lived right here. And I realized quickly that something like that must have happened. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I must have been dreaming it. I'm sorry. But I'm inside, I'm kind of freaking out. What is happening? How does these things keep happening? It's so
wow.
strange.
The other thing I would add is, does this man have trouble in his relationship? Are you seeing his future?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I had talked to several different people, and I got a few different explanations on that one. It was either the dimension, dipping into other dimensions, or they thought I might be reading his thoughts, maybe he his intentions, he wanted that to happen but wasn't acting on it, or or what you said, possibly that I had read into his future. I don't know. I know I've frightened a few people by things that I've said, similar to that, when I've asked them about things that they've never talked about. That person in particular never talked to me again. He avoided me at all costs after that. So I'm not exactly sure
I bet you that you really pushed a button that he. It sounds like it just sounds like you pushed his button by that. All those explanations would come down to the same thing. It's his future. You read his intention, or another. It all would come out with the same kind of his being afraid or upset about you.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I have a couple of good friends that are, or one in particular that's very similar with abilities and experiences that happen, maybe not quite as many as I have happened, but she too, oh my goodness, I'm losing my thought just like that, has had a lot of these same things happen to her. So
we had one this week I want to share with you briefly, and then we'll go back to yours. I have two blue flashlights because at night when I go to the bathroom, it's kind of dark in here. I don't want to turn on the lights and wake up Sasha. So they were sitting by my bedside. I woke up and they were both gone. Absolutely gone. Couldn't find them for a couple of days. Then finally, about a day or two later, Sasha found one. And I looked everywhere. As soon as the sun came out, we both looked everywhere. No sign of either of the flashlights. And then when I came back about 2 days later, and then the next day, I woke up and they were both sitting on my, right beside me, where I sleep, on my bedside table. It's not like more than a foot away, right? It's wait a minute. These weren't here. How did they come back? And I look at them all the time. It's so there is something going on here. So tell us a little bit more about those type of experiences, if you have any more, and then we'll try to figure out what's going on.
I'll get a little reading here. Well, it's very interesting, and I think it does happen to a lot of people. I'm not sure why. I honestly think it's interdimensional spirits a lot of times coming here and being curious about something and maybe picking it up and then at another point bringing it back. I kind of I'm 50-50 with that theory and me, myself, or you, or whoever going in and out of dimensions. I think it can kind of make you crazy sometimes, because you're like, okay, I'm just making that up, but I must have just missed that. And I think that's kind of how we give ourselves excuses to get by the thought and not like have to worry about it or read into it too much, because if we really examined everything that happened in our lives, we would be a mess, I think, because it's so complex, really, of all the different things that happen. But, just off it, I do want to tell you something else that happened. This was extremely interesting. This actually was years ago in a different state. My kids were very young at the time, so let's say 20 years ago about. And I was doing laundry, and this happened over the course of 1 year. So I was doing laundry, and I came across this little pair, or maybe I did tell you guys this already, this little pair of blue shorts that were hand sewn. And they didn't fit either of my kids, and no one I knew. I asked everyone I could think of whose shorts these were, and they were no one that I knew. So I just, gave them away or donated them or something. A few months later, there was a T-shirt, like a tank top, again, didn't fit anyone. And then third time, there was another T-shirt, I think it was a Mickey Mouse T-shirt that didn't fit anyone. And they all appeared in my laundry at different times, but yet didn't fit anyone in my family.
At your house. This is at your house. It's not a laundromat.
Yeah, at my house. At my house, I had my own washer dryer at my house, and I had already lived there for probably a year at that time when that started happening. At that same house, I would get. I blamed it on the dog, but I didn't quite know how the dog was doing it. But like an entire loaf of banana bread, like the cellophane was perfectly unwrapped without any teeth marks, anything in it, any drool or anything like that on it. And the entire loaf of banana bread was gone, and the house was locked up. Another time, an entire bin of like little mini powdered donuts was gone. The lid was back on the container, and there was no tooth mark, no nothing on it. Like she opened it and then sealed it back up. I had like a bunch. Yeah, I was like, this dog's been amazing. That dog, though, like I would come home sometimes and she would be out of her kennel, and the kennel would still be locked. So these experiences at that house were very much like Skinwalker Ranch. They remind me of similar things of Skinwalker Ranch. She twice, or maybe just once, was so injured when I came home she couldn't breathe, and for some reason she had a hole in her lung, but there was no marks on the outside of her skin. I had to like rush her to a vet hospital, and they couldn't explain it. The best guess they could come up with is she got up on some furniture and fell off, and somehow caused her lung to kind of break open or something, and she had a bunch of air in her body cavity. But now after knowing more about what happens in some of these weird alien cases, I wonder, because I was having a lot of paranormal stuff happen at that house. So that was pretty interesting.
Of putting up some cameras to see if you might figure out what some of these things are?
Yeah, I have bought some and have them, and never seem to have the time to get them up. You think I would be better about it and want to find out, but maybe I'm a little subconsciously afraid to see what's really happening. I'm not sure. I do have, because the possibility of it being, not that type of thing would be people, but sometimes I wonder if some of the things aren't people, or like you hear of like the MyLab and cases like that. And there's so many things that make me wonder if some of it is not that, because I've had a lot of voice to skull things happen. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I want, there again, like Dr. Sasha has said, maybe that is just like dipping into another dimension very quickly and coming back out. But I will hear the person talking to me say, for example, it happened recently with, I was talking to a friend on the phone. I didn't know her very well. And her mother's Native American. And she said, her with that god-awful blonde hair. And I thought, I'm thinking she must have dyed her hair blonde, or something. And then I asked her about it. I'm like, I'm surprised your mom has blonde hair being Native American. She's like, what are you talking about? She doesn't have blonde hair. She's Native American. She has dark hair. And I'm like, no, you said that. And she's like, no, like I never have said that. So and I get that quite often.
Wow.
Yeah, so
now,
I don't know. Like sometimes I
what
wonder.
voice to skull is. Can you explain a little bit to listeners what voice to skull is? The theory behind that.
Well, what voice to skull is basically, I'll say, it looks like or from what I know of it, it's like government or like CIA or secret program people putting a little transmitter or some kind of what do you call it? Implant under your skin. I want to say usually they're around your ear or behind your ear or something like that. And they can basically listen to anything you're saying and talk to you through this, either in their own voices or making you sound like the people that you're talking to, and give you different conversation without you realizing it's the people talking. And the reason I started to wonder if it wasn't that is because I started having a lot of really strange near misses outside of, usually when I was driving, quite often when I was driving. So I had a couch fly off a truck in front of me, and it wasn't just an accident because this truck, this was approximately 10:30 at night. This actually just happened within the last year, and I had been talking a lot about this type of thing to a lot of people. And anyways, this truck pulled up next to me on the highway and rode alongside me for quite a while. It was a pickup truck. And then all of a sudden it like went really fast, got right in front of me, and then sped way up. So it like took off like it was, I couldn't even see it anymore. And the next thing I know, this huge couch is coming at me on the highway.
Wow.
And we all had to like slam on our brakes, and I think I was within an inch or two of hitting it when I slammed on the brakes, and a bunch of cars had to go around. And then it wasn't, I think, 2 months later, or maybe not even 2 months, maybe a month later, a car from like 4 or 5 lanes over came flying across the road. And me and the car in front of me had to slam on our brakes. This car, it went down the embankment, over the frontage road, through this field into the trees. And me and the lady in front of me stopped, and this guy comes running out screaming that he had been kidnapped. And it was so crazy. But it was just like a week or two before that, the same thing happened without the kidnapping thing. A truck with a car on the back of it, like a flatbed, came flying across like 4 or 5 lanes of traffic on a different highway. And we, like me and the car in front of me again, like it was always like so close. And then they just like take off. Like they almost caused this major accident and then they just take off like nothing ever happened. And so there was like these things that kept happening like that, so close together. And I'm like talking
to... You know, the best way you can protect yourself, Nikki, is be as public as you possibly can about all these things, so that they don't think that they can, if it is my labs or someone, and this has happened to a number of people. Preston Nichols writes about it.
Before he died, yeah. Preston Nichols used to write about all this, but he's no longer with us. So there's a lot of YouTubes out there that have similar things. Like people have their webcams, and all of a sudden these vehicles come flying across the street, and then some of them, like these cars, just materialize out of nowhere. I mean, literally, they have these cameras, and there's nothing there, and suddenly there's a car. So this might be more interdimensional stuff going on. I mean, at least for part of it, not saying everything. Did the guy with the couch ever come back looking for his couch?
No. And I ended up having to call the police to like have them come get it off the road.
Wow.
So that other people didn't, get into an accident because it was dark out. And, that you said that interdimensional thing, this happened in August of it has been a year and a half. And I was on the phone with a friend, and it was right by DFW Airport, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And I was talking to her, and I saw a Jeep-type truck fall out of the sky. Like, I kid you not. It came out of the sky. It bounced about 10 feet in the air. I thought it was going to go on its side. It started to it came down kind of on 2 wheels, but it ended up straightening out. And that too, as soon as, whoever was driving that gained control, they took off. And it wasn't just me that saw it, because the people that were driving around me, we all stop, what was that? Did you just see the
webcam?
Did you see a driver, or was it driverless? Was it driver?
I could not.
Driverless?
I don't know. It was enough far ahead of me that I could not see whether there was a driver in it or not. It just the second all 4 wheels balanced out, it took off. It took off.
Oh,
and
nice.
Especially the guy in front of me. The guy in front of me was looking back at me did you just see that? So I'm well, thank God it wasn't just me. And I was on the phone, and I just talked to my friend about this not too long ago. I go, do you remember that? And she's like, you have the craziest experience. I know.
Let's get a webcam for your car and cameras for your house, because this is fascinating. So it's you. Wherever you go, there it is, right?
It's you, yeah.
It's you.
Yeah.
You're doing
something. That was the difference between when I read the book Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker, yes. I was like, oh my gosh, so many of these things I've seen and experienced and has happened. But with that, it's location, right? But with me, it's wherever I go. I've been across several states. I've been across the whole United States. And wherever I am, it happens. Every place I've ever lived, it's happened. So I can't
so
really...
you're a common factor.
So let's imagine that
it must be.
Oh, you've got something that interests this other force, whatever it is. Why are they? What would you guess that they're interested in you? It's funny because I think I need to write a book. I want to write a book, and get this all on paper. And I always am thinking, what should my title be? And
thought recently I should probably title it My Ordinary Extraordinary Life, right? Because I feel very ordinary in almost every sort of way, right? I work a 9-to-5 job, so to speak. I have, fairly normal kids and normal friends, and I have these crazy, extraordinary things happen to me. I don't really know, honestly. I've never felt like I was from this planet, even as a little girl. I remember looking up to the sky and asking them when they're coming to get me, because I did not feel like I was from here or belonged here, and I could not quite understand why I was here. So I used to tell my mom, I used to stare at the sun, and she would say, "Stop staring at the sun, you're going to wreck your eyes." And I would say, "That's where I'm from. That's my home." And I don't know why I said that, honestly, and I don't even think I knew when I said it, why.
I've heard other people say the exact same thing, that I'm from the sun, that in the center of the sun, beings are alive. I've heard this from several other people.
Oh, interesting. Well, that makes me feel slightly better. But, other than that, I've had readings, and I've done my own meditation, and I've done hypnosis, and got a lot of background that way of who I am and where I came from. But I don't repeat it very often, because I think it sounds almost like braggy or something like that, or that people are going to think that I'm just totally lost my mind.
But tell us anyway. Tell us.
Right,
tell the
I'll
world.
tell you what I've gotten that I don't share very often. That I come from a realm that's very close to the angels and or archangels, and I work closely with them, and that I'm an experienced universe traveler, so I know the universe very well, and I'm assisting some of the other alien groups in whatever they're trying to pursue or get done or accomplish. It looks like, I think it's the mantis that take me often. They take my consciousness and have me represent them in pursuing, I think, some peace treaties with some beings that they haven't been able to get along with, or to reason to give them insight. They say that they come and take me, even in the middle of the day, when you have those moments where you just kind of space out for a little bit, and then you're or something startles you and you kind of come back to. They say that that's when they're taking me. It seems like a couple of seconds, 5-10 seconds to me, but it's they're getting stuff accomplished with me doing that, or during that time. Time isn't the same everywhere, of course. So I think that might be some of the reasons why there's some interest in me here. There was.
So what is it that the mantis? Who is it that the mantis wants you to help make peace with? Do you know who they're concerned, or what beings they're concerned about?
They say I have to represent them when they can't show themselves. And honestly, the only group that I've seen in a vision was what looked like the ant people. And I have never, ever before seen them or communicated with them in any sort of way, but it looked like they were kind of using my image to get the attention of them, almost just what it looked like to me is they were trying to make peace with them in some sort of way. It had been a little hostile between the two of them for some reason. So it was interesting, and that was kind of something new that had just happened, that vision.
Wow. Are you a Native American?
Very, very little. It would have been my great-great-grandmother was Blackfoot. So it doesn't dwindle down to a whole lot for me, but a little bit, I guess. Well, so here's
what happens with the Ant people. Very, are regarded as having saved the Native Americans during the Great Flood, and they really feel that if you have their ancestry, that you can be tagged as someone they can communicate through. That's the story I get from many people.
Wow. I knew very little about them, and I actually just had that today because I've been trying to figure out what the mantids want with me. They saw one underneath my apartment building, like in a tunnel. The paranormal team that came in to help me, we talked about that the last time I had interviewed with you.
Right.
So do you remember what I had said?
Yeah. You want to refresh that with our listeners? Yeah. So they saw a man.
So, yeah, I was, this is when I kind of first was realizing that I was being abducted, and some crazy things were happening in my apartment, and I was just like, oh my gosh, let me call in a team and see. I just wanted to see what was going on. So I had a quick version of it. I had a laundry detergent tub put inside my washing machine when the washing machine was locked and already started. And when I went to change the load, the laundry detergent tub was inside of it. And it was just like, it startled me so much because it was such a big object to have happened, like right in front of me, basically, right? I was doing chores around the apartment and it happened. And so I decided to have a highly recommended team come in by Lorian Fenton. She recommended them. And when they came in, they found tunnels underneath my apartment, which a psychic had seen a couple of months before that. So I had already been told about them, but wasn't really sure if it was real or not. And then when this team came in, they confirmed that they found a mantid, but unfortunately took it as, because the mantid was in like gear that made it look like it was guarding me, but possibly like combat kind of thing. They went ahead without permission and kind of got into a battle with it and killed it. And when they started to like kind of they used their energy to kind of like cave in the tunnels. 3 grays came running out of the tunnel to kind of it looked like, I assumed, to help the mantid. But so that's the story of how I knew the mantids were around me. And the trickster that was in my apartment, moving things around and doing things, they had to get into quite a battle with it. And they also had found a troll in my apartment, and the troll left willingly. The trickster did not, so they ended up kind of battling that. But it ended up coming back the very next night and wrapping a big rope around a pull-up bar that was in my bedroom doorway. So I had after, you had them come in and they guarantee they removed everything and secured your place, and then something comes in and moves wrapped at that, big thick rope 3 times around that bar, again, right behind my back. I had just walked through that doorway, and I turned around.
Rope? Did you
I had
a rope?
Yeah, the rope was hanging from the pull-up bar because I was doing kickboxing, so I would practice like punching at the rope, like boxing at the rope. But the rope hung down like maybe only 6 inches off the floor, maybe a foot off the floor. And when I walked through the doorway, it hit me in the shoulder, the bottom of the rope. So it had wrapped it around 3 times just in the matter of a few seconds when I had my back to it. So I called them back, and they battled it out again, I guess. And the girl that took it on, energy-wise, she said it was one of the strongest ones that she had ever had come in contact with. So then I'm like, why is this? Like, what is happening that these things are so attracted to me, that they're so wanting to come. But I don't think it's all bad. I don't think it's negative. A lot of times I think they're coming because they recognize my energy, not who I am as a human, but my energy, and they're coming just to ask questions or to sit with me or something like that, type beings and energies that I've known forever, but I don't recognize them. So it's just
Nikki,
that
I have a question.
Amnesia.
We work with a lot of people, and sometimes people find out that they have alters, that they've been taken into the lab. They've been split into subpersonalities, especially if they've been in my labs, and they might have one subpersonality that, flies a ship, another one, works as a clerk on Mars. And so I'm just wondering if what some of this might be is that you're getting switched into an alter, and something happens, and then you come back to Nikki, and you're going, what happened? That's why a camera would be great to see if it's, something poltergeist or, interdimensional, or have they split you into alters and you might be changing, your alters and doing different functions. You can integrate if that happened, but it'd be good to understand what is actually going on. I would really recommend getting some cameras.
Yeah. And I've been in a group for almost a year now, discussing it with other people that have similar things, trying to figure everything out. It's possible. I kind of question some of my friends that I've had for a really long time, and they have never noticed anything. I said, you ever notice that, I seem like, kind of questioning to see if maybe I just don't even realize it. But so far, I haven't gotten anyone that can testify that they've seen me in any other state than Nikki. So it's a tough one.
You might have alters that only operate when they're around certain people. So if you're going to go hang out with your friends, that alter comes out. I mean, I don't want to suggest anything. I'm just, as a scientific-minded person, I look at everything and to see what's going on, because that is a very interesting. I mean, I'm sure they put cameras all around Skinwalker Ranch, and so I might. Yeah, and they had here. There's so many weird things that have happened here over the years. I know I'm in a portal. You're probably, it's part me. Wherever I go, I have stuff, but then I tend to live in portals. I'm drawn to live in these places on a subconscious level, and there I am living on another portal. And then, of course, who knows what else is going on. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a portal opened up right outside my bedroom door or window.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just the paranormal team that saw it. Other psychics had seen it as well. So, and that is the story of the Zohar. That was like, I'm not sure if I opened that or if it was already opened when I got here. But
tell us about Zohar. Explain that to us. What is Zohar?
Well, the Zohar.
10 minutes for the break. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a quick version. I went to Teotihuacan. I'm sure I'm destroying the pronunciation on that. Teotihuacan.
Teotihuacan.
Yes, thank you. In Mexico to the pyramids. And while I was there, I was introduced to this Zohar book. And this guy had bought it and brought it with him. And he was like, hold this book. So when I held it, you could feel the energy, like you could feel it just coming out of this book. And I'm like, ugh, like, I don't know if I like that, right? And he's like, no. Like, I slept with this book and it answered all my problems. Like, it helped me solve every problem I had when I dreamt. It gave me all the answers. And I'm like, that's amazing, right? That's interesting. So I asked a shaman that I knew, and he said, oh, that book's amazing. He, too, had used that book when he was going through his, what you call it, transformation into shamanism. He, you kind of die and come back to life. And during that process, he had lost the ability to walk. And he said he would sit with a Zohar, and it helped him walk again. And now he's like in great health and all of that. So I went ahead and decided, without knowing much more about it, to get a Zohar book. And it's written in Arabic, so I couldn't read it. But there's a scanning schedule that they have, like the Kabbalah. And so I decided to go ahead and do the scanning. So you just every Sunday scan your hand along the pages that it tells you to scan it. And then after I was done, I just asked, for like health and peace and happiness and whatever I felt like, I just really wanted happiness, mostly peace and happiness. So after a month or so of doing this, I was laying on my bed one night and I fell asleep, and I woke up and I was like, I thought I had vertigo. The room was spinning and I thought it was me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never had vertigo before, but it has to be this. Like, I thought I was going to throw up. It was spinning so fast. So I ran to the bathroom to get like a garbage can, and I stumbled back to bed, and I looked and I saw the Zohar laying on my bed, and I'm like, oh, it's the Zohar. Like, I knew it at that moment. So I grabbed it and kind of pushed it off my bed. And I just laid like in the prone position, with my hands folded across my chest and like my rib cage, and closed my eyes, because that was the only thing I could do where my head wasn't like spinning so much, or like I kind of could handle that position. And like what felt like a second, I heard my son calling me, and he's like, Mom, are you ever going to get up? And I opened my eyes and it's daylight, and I'm like, what time is it? And I think like 11 hours had gone by, and I was in the exact same position. And I know 11 hours because I glanced at the clock when I ran to the bathroom. And so for 11 hours, I didn't move. Now, everything was peaceful and calm, but I could see, when I thought I had vertigo, the room was spinning. So I don't know if I had opened a portal with the Zohar or what, but now when I hold that book, there's no energy there. It's like I released the energy, or the energy was released into the universe, because now you hold it and you don't feel that. You don't feel that energy pouring out of it anymore.
let me just add, Janet's pulled up a bunch of things about the Zohar, and it all say that they were written in Aramaic, not Arabic. And I just wonder if you have an Arabic. That's a big
Aramaic,
difference.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a really big difference. I got to tell you.
Right, and they range from I'm looking on Amazon. They go up to $900 for a collector's edition, starting at $14 approximately. They have a complete encyclopedia of Zohar, collection of 26 books. But then some of them are just one single book. Some are 5-volume set, 23-volume set. And this is amazing. So, do you know which one you have?
I got it off of Amazon. I bought it from it was used. And I just ordered, I didn't know what I was doing, when I ordered it. So I just ordered it, and it ended up being a second edition. I paid approximately $60 for mine. And some of my friends, wanted in on the action. So they had ordered theirs, but for some reason, something happened with shipping or this, that, or the other thing, and they didn't end up getting theirs. Or they got it and it wasn't what they wanted, and they sent it back. So I was basically the one that ended up with it. And I don't know, in a reading, it seemed to not be made up of all good things. So I was like, oh my gosh, what if I release some bad energy? I hope I didn't release some bad energy. But it's supposed to be the ways of the universe. It's supposed to be the secrets of the ways of the universe. It was written, I think, from what I read, in Spanish and French and possibly another language. And they don't know who the author is or authors. It's just kind of text is what it says. But his felt the same way until after I released it,
Mm-hmm.
So
here's one. It's got a dark cover. I think it's either blue or dark blue or black.
Yes.
Part of the complete original Aramaic text. It's a hardcover.
Yes.
Now going for $437.99.
New.
No. Yeah, whatever it is.
It says used.
It's used, yeah.
It's $437.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, out of print, probably. Wow. Okay, we're going to be coming up on our commercial any second now. That's fascinating. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes after we get the music break. What would you like to focus on this next and final hour? Any ideas?
We can talk about dreams. We can talk about the Anunnaki. I have some additional stuff to add to the starts of my life, if you're interested in that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, we will focus on dreams, Anunnaki. You grew up in a religious background where everything was demonized that you were getting, so that had to be difficult. And there's our cue. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sacred Make Sacred on Revolution Radio, Studio B. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin. And I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as the Mad Painter. And our guest is Nikki Yanke. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to go up to the donation tab on the upper left-hand corner of revolution.radio website. And do make your donation this week, because we really need your donation, and we thank you very much for everything you contribute. So, Dr. Lessin, what would you like to say?
I'm particularly interested in the Anunnaki, so I'm looking forward to this segment.
Okay. So, But Nikki, we're going to let you make the choice of where you want to start. We have a lot of topics to discuss this final hour. So back to you. Where do you want us to take us? We're journeying with you on this road that you're taking through time and space and consciousness.
I can talk about the Anunnaki as much as I can possibly. I think that you two probably have a much greater understanding of them, but I do have some, I guess, some communication and some memories of them, some that I remember, some that have been told to me.
Yeah. We'd love to hear what you're getting. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so my kind of adventures with the Anunnaki started when I was giving a reading to a client, and I kept getting, the Anunnaki kept coming through, and I had heard of them, but I didn't really know a lot about them at that time. So I had asked him, do you know who the Anunnaki are? And he's like, oh my God, I have like the secret obsession with the Anunnaki. He's like, I've been, studying them for 3 years. Like, I'm obsessed with them, and I have never told a soul, So I communicated the message to him, what they wanted me to tell him, but I couldn't lose this impression that I was connected with them. So I started doing some research, and there's a wide range, I'd say, of interpretation of who they are, or what they were doing, and all of this. So I kind of went with what felt right to me, and tried to communicate a little bit more with them, which I didn't have great success in getting back in touch with them. A little bit, a couple of questions answered. Jehovah kept coming up, and Jehovah kind of sits on the Enlil side, as far as I can tell, which is AKA, yes. Right? That's so, right. Yes. So I tried to figure out why this, and then I grew up Jehovah's Witness. So I'm like, oh my gosh, there has to be some sort of weird connection with this. I never knew that Jehovah was associated, with Yahweh and Enlil. I never knew that were other names for Enlil. And then I thought, oh, great, because he's kind of known as the bad one, and Enki more so as the good one. I'm like, oh, why do I have to be on this side of this things? But I was with an Akashic reader, and I said, I'm having kind of struggling to get my own information from the Anunnaki. I feel like I'm associated with Enlil somehow. I have seen visions in past life regressions of being with them, but nothing real vivid, but very short little visions, not real lengthy visions. And she saw a lifetime of Enlil taking me as a child and keeping me as his own. And I grew up as a part of their family, but not as a descendant. And becoming eventually kind of going against him because I didn't agree with the way he was treating people and things like that. And I think that began the course of our butting heads. So I think there's been several lifetimes that I've had in paying a price for going against him.
Wow.
Well,
and I think,
that's basically that's very interesting, because that's really this basic story of Jesus, who said you don't have to be subject to a vengeful, angry deity at all. You can directly reach spirit.
Yeah, that's 100%. Well, of course, Jesus said it must be true. I believe that completely. I have had direct contact with what I would call either a higher source or hopefully the highest source. It was through the archangels, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't look directly at it. It was such a pure, bright, white light. It was like surrounding the archangels, who I meditate to quite often. And I was just like given the opportunity to ask some questions, and I was like so taken aback, even in meditation, that I wasn't even like prepared for this type of meditation. So I wanted to know, like, if there was good in everything, because I had been attacked by, like, physically attacked by dark energy, and spiritually attacked by dark energy. So I wanted to know if there could possibly be good, because I'd always heard, just if you throw love at it, if you love it unconditionally, it can't hurt you. It can't, there's nothing it can do. Like, that's like the, kryptonite kind of thing against evil. And absolutely, the creator, I kind of tend to go with the creator. He said back to me, or put in my head back to me, that there's always a way to come back to the light. There's always a pinhole in the heart, or that's the image that he showed me. That's the vision that I saw. I saw like the darkest demon that you could see, with a little tiny pinhole in his heart, with this light, this bright light shining through it, that they always can open that up more and more. So love it's the only and the best and the truest thing you could possibly do, right? In order to come out of this world and move on, you have to love unconditionally. You have to see through the darkness, that there is light there, and let it go and just move on. Not have fear, not have regret, grudge, jealousy, anything. Just be okay with it and put it into something bigger than your hands, and let it go. And this is kind of beyond the Anunnaki. I kind of stumbled out of that a little bit, but I see the Anunnaki, they claim to be the gods, and in a way they were, right? Because they created a lot of things. They created a lot of beings, and our souls went into these beings. So that's the other side. They created, but the true creator, the creator of the souls of the spirit, that is something else. They may have created some beings, but I don't believe they created the soul.
They had a belief in the creator of all, so they even had a higher power. But what were you going to say, Sasha?
One of the people we've been interviewing, John Titor, who an Air Force retired Air Force general, basically time traveled to a planet called Kepler 69c, he says, and Yahweh is there and said he did the things that he did, and he's no longer angry or vengeful, and he still loves humanity, and would be happy to assist in this coming age of Aquarius. And he's evolved too. And in the last part of the Lost Book of Enki, Lucifer, the two brothers, Enlil and Enki, put their arms around each other, and they loved each other again too.
Right.
That is extremely interesting to me, because I think I've only shared this with a handful of people. I did a meditation, and that's not word for word, of course, but that's exactly what they said, that they have evolved and that they are no longer what they once were, and they have even broke off into other groups, that they're not all one, that like they've kind of, some have moved here and moved there, and that Yahweh, he said that he was misunderstood a lot of times. Like at times he really did mean well and meant for the right thing, but it just came out all backwards and wrong at times. So I would agree with that 100%.
So apparently there's still a faction back on Nibiru. Then there's Kepler 69, which is Enlil's new colony.
It's people by Maya.
And the Mayans, the Mayans had the history of space travel. We could see the things that Palenque and the different, what do you call them? Carvings that showed them in the craft, right?
On the sarcophagus of Lord Pakal.
Right. So that showed them going into space. So apparently a lot of the Mayan people became relocated. So we have these colonies that are being discovered because of LIDAR that had millions of people in where was that? In
Yucatan. And Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico.
Right. And so people are going, where did they go? Well, apparently they went into space and they're on these other colonies. So what you're getting spiritually or psychically is being correlated with what we're discovering now, which correlates with the ancient information. So I think a picture is emerging here. But history is not always kind to people, and it gets rewritten by the current perspective. So he's coming forth and apologizing and saying, everything was misinterpreted or some things were misinterpreted, and that's probably what's going on. That's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, because that just kind of confirmed what I had gotten from them. So that makes me very excited. I'm happy about that. Yeah, it kind of calms me down too, because in trying to figure out more information about the Zohar, it seemed that Yahweh was a little involved in that at some point or another. So kind of makes me feel better about that book too, that it wasn't
it
all
says
bad.
Here that Zohar was the book of Abraham, and Abraham was, the Holy Zohar, the book of Abraham, a book of healing and protection. So Abraham was Enlil's man, Yahweh's man.
That's right.
So explain the correlation between Yahweh and Abraham.
Okay, so Yahweh's number one hybrid was a guy named Terah, and his son was Abraham, and Abraham was trained, and they were sent down to the court of Nanar, or Sin, who is the lord of the Sinai Peninsula. And the job that Abraham was trained for was to be general. He had the best camels. Yahweh made sure that he was supposed to keep the peace and keep all the Yahweh's terrible problem, and what he got in a lot of trouble was he to try to stop these squabbling nobles and the hybrids that they controlled from warring continually. And so Yahweh kept trying to appoint the people to rule everything and make order. But what they did is they kept warring with each other again and again. So Abraham's job was to get between the warring factions and stop them from warring. That was his initial job. And a bunch of other things happened. He was sent as a spy to Sodom and Gomorrah and Zohar to see if they had gone over to Satan. That's Marduk. That's Enki's son. Or whether they were still loyal, and so he reported back. These guys are definitely in Marduk's camp, and so then Yahweh gave the order. Well, go ahead and nuke them. Nuke the Salt Sea, and it became the Dead Sea. Nuke the. They had a spaceport in the Sinai. Nuke the spaceport because we do not want Marduk to be able to invade Nibiru. He thinks he should be king of Nibiru. But the problem was that with this nuking, they sent Nergal and Ninurta to do the nuking. A nuclear holocaust came, a radioactive wind, and it blew over all of Sumer. And of course, the Anunnaki fled in their planes and boats and stuff. Marduk and Ki both had fallout shelters. Cappadocia was one of them, for example. And so that just totally wiped out Sumer, which is all the stuff that Yahweh had been trying to do. And so he said, I quit. I'm not going to stay here anymore. Leave the place to Marduk. Let's see what kind of a thing he does. Maybe he'll make things so aversive that these people will gain sophistication. And that's what happened in the Lost Book of Angels. That's what he does.
And Marduk is the one that ended up kind of imprisoning humans, making them basically slaves. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's still what's going on today. But hopefully we'll change it.
Absolutely.
Economics.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah. And I'm not sure where I read that about the Dead Sea actually being, it was Sodom and Gomorrah, right? That actually it was a nuclear explosion or hit anyway that changed that. And that makes perfect sense to me. To me, that's exactly what I see.
The Sinai is covered with tephra, which is the kind of fragments that you got in Hiroshima. That was all that was left of the people in Nagasaki. The Israelis have since figured out, and Enki already knew how because he cleared up his place, which was Basra. So the Israelis have cleaned the radioactivity out, and there's again, it's not a dead area; it's a really nice area now.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's very interesting. I had in my first regression hypnosis, I went to a place where it all looked white and gold and very majestic. And when she asked me to describe myself, to look down at my feet were hooves, and my legs were like animal, like not really horse, but I'm not even sure, like the back end of a horse, I guess, kind of. But the top half of me was female. Mm-hmm. And she asked me why I was that way, and I said, well, because I can run faster, like, of course. Why wouldn't it be that way?
The Anunnaki geneticists say we made centaurs.
Right. They made all kinds of
and when I looked,
yes.
So in that regression, I could see a king. It was a hierarchy kind of place, and I said it looked kind of between Persian and Roman, and there was like a lot of pillars, and it was very interesting. But when I didn't know anything about the Anunnaki at that moment, but it reminded me of that once I learned of it. I'm like, I wonder if that wasn't a planet somewhere that I had once been a part of.
Yes, souls can go to other planets in our regression. We're not limited to Earth. My question is, was your top part humanoid, or what was your top part like? You said female, but were you a female human or a female what?
Oh, yeah, a female human.
Shirt on or not?
Uh-huh.
And what was that?
What kind of clothing did you wear or if not any. Wear, if any?
Gosh, I don't remember seeing clothing. I know I had white hair. She asked me what color my hair was, and I said it was white. But outside of that, I don't think I saw. I just knew that I was female. And she asked me how old I was, and I said I was around 15, 16, like a young girl.
Oh, young person. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting to me because
relative to where you're from, because we don't know what that means on another planet. I mean, 15 that's years around the sun. So if you're on another planet, does that mean rotations around the sun, or how do they?
That's what a year means.
Account the time. I guess years around the sun, but how long is their rotation around the sun or their sun, right? So that's what I was trying to explain.
Yeah. So I could be, I don't know, 1 million or 2.
Right. You never know.
But we know that the Anunnaki home planet Nibiru took 3,600 years for a long time, and then it's sped up to 3,450 years for it to make a year of for the Anunnaki. That's what Janet's alluding to.
So if you're Anunnaki,
right? Yeah,
16 rotations around the sun. It's 16 times 3,600 years approximately. So you could be very old.
Yes.
In human terms.
Yes. Yep. I get it. Yeah, you never know. And, apparently they aged well because they're still around, right?
Oh, yeah. They're still around. And they don't have all the things that are built in to cause them to age and die like we do.
And they do things like eat a monoatomic gold every day. And they do a lot of, they have a lot of things based not just on their genetic longevity, but on their health practices, because they know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's really interesting that you mentioned the gold, because I've had dreams where I've been in search of gold. And but to me, it felt like this type of dream felt to me like I was being forced to look for gold. Not that I was, wanting to. There was always like some sort of soldier feel behind it, and I could never see them. I was always in the lead person, so I could never see who was behind me. But I've had several dreams where I was looking in blown up cities, like cities that were deserted, no longer, planets that were deserted, didn't seem like there was much life left, or in caves and places like that where we were looking for gold and seeing what we could find.
Well, I would think blow up cities that were deserted. Do you have any logic behind that?
No, it's always the same type of people. And this might go back to more of the MK Ultra type stuff, or
mm-hmm.
I really don't know. I've kind of started to try and discover it, but I get a little frustrated sometimes, and I just want, sometimes you just want to live a normal life, whatever that is.
Right.
And not think about it. So
it's the same story. When Joshua surrounded the walls of Jericho, and inside Jericho is where the Nephilim lived, and they used sonar to break down the walls and all that stuff. And then what Yahweh said is, kill every dog, every cat, every child, everyone you find there, and don't take anything, but get all the gold and put it in a pile and give it to me. The gold will be mine. And one dude took some gold so he could get some things for his family, and Yahweh found out about it, and he killed this guy and all his relatives for doing it. So this is a pattern, a crumbled up city that they just destroyed, people that they killed, and what they're looking for in the rubble is gold.
And the other thing is, it sounds like you're describing some of our super soldiers, like in the 20 and back program. Mm-hmm. They get taken, they're being used on some foreign planet or another location, and there's somebody ordering them around, they're destroying things, they're fighting other beings, and often they get returned to their beds. Sometimes years have gone by. It's called the 20 and back program. One person was taken as a young boy. When he came back, it was the next day. He was still a young boy, but in the middle of that, he grew up and he experienced the whole life, and he was in his 20s before he got returned back to the point where he was taken. and his parents never knew that he disappeared. But when he went down the next morning, he had PTSD because he had spent 20 years fighting aliens and going through, killing and watching his people be killed. So maybe you're having something like that. Not to suggest anything, but just to give you a reference to that. There are all these things are happening. Go ahead, back to you.
Oh, well, I'll share something with you that I haven't shared with anyone yet. So I recently did ancestry DNA. And when I did it, I discovered my father was not my father. Now, when I was 10 years old, my mother had told me. Now, a quick description of my mother, she was, we kind of thought she was mentally ill a lot because she would do kind of crazy things and act. She was very hard to live with. Let me say that. Kind of bipolar and that sort of thing. She, it was hard to understand like where she was coming from a lot. But now thinking back, I think she was probably also abducted by aliens and was probably very confused and just didn't know what was happening to her. But anyway, at 10, she had told me that she had been raped by her doctor. He had drugged her in the office and raped her at the time that I was conceived. And he told her if she ever told or I turned out to be his, that he would take me from her. So she was always a little afraid, although she did pursue it. But we were from a very small farming town, and no one really believed her. So she did attempt to take him to court. The other witnesses backed out, like the nurse and some other women backed out at the last minute. And I believe he was ordered, like he couldn't practice medicine any longer in Wisconsin. And she told me that, but they, like the state of Florida allowed him to practice there. So that was told to me, and, it kind of sat in my head, but I never knew what to do with it. So years later, about 2 years ago, me and my son decided to do the ancestry DNA and see if what we knew was actually true and all of that. And I have a sister pops up and an uncle pops up that I have no idea who they are, but I'm like, oh my gosh, guess what name that is? It's the name of that doctor she told me about, right? So in a long story short, they have not, the sister has not reached back out to me, and the uncle started to talk to me until I told him my mother's name, and then he now won't talk to me anymore. But I have not contacted any of them. I haven't done anything with it. They do live in Florida. Everything matches up perfectly from what I was said. But the reason I'm telling you all of this, the interesting thing is, in a regression, I looked back at that and was told that he was involved in the program, in the MK Ultra program, and all of that. He was a key player, and that I was like kind of picked to be a part of that. Like it started before I was born. So the reader, that Akashic record reader, she confirmed that. I asked her about it, and she kept saying, they're saying it was already decided before you were even born. It was decided before you were born. So that kind of coincides with all of that, although I really have next to no memories. It's very difficult even for me to imagine that's true, because I have so much amnesia, if it is true. Like, it's really amazing how they can work this out, except for the fact that I've had so many crazy experiences. Like, I kind of go back and forth. It has to be true, because why does all this insane things happen to me? But, you know, you don't really want to believe it. It's hard to accept.
So, Nikki, let's assume that it's true just for the moment. If you could speak to the spirit of your father, of this guy that raped your ma, what would you want to say to him?
I don't know. I've thought about that a lot, because he's still alive, and I thought, geez, I better hurry up. If I'm gonna do something, I better do it pretty quick, because he's getting, you know, pretty old. But I honestly just don't know. I am kind of a strong believer. Oddly enough, I'm still a believer of it was kind of set up to happen a certain way so that we could learn lessons and do things and accomplish things so that our souls can learn and move on and have these experiences and move on. It seems pretty horrific, some of the things that happen here on Earth, but I'm very sorry, you know, for my mother. I wish that people would have believed her, at least, so that she didn't have to live her entire life with everyone thinking she was making things up. That kind of, it saddens me that she had to live that way. And I guess Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know. That's why I haven't reached out.
Yeah. Well, you felt your mother's pain. How could you not do that? You had, you felt her.
Right. Yeah. Like I mean, it's a horrible thing to do to begin with, but then, unfortunately, her own family didn't really stick up for her and believe her, which that's, I guess, a little bit more painful. He did whatever he did. He had a job to do, apparently, and for whatever reason he did it. Maybe he was threatened. Who knows? He did what he did.
Your dad is not your biological, but the father that raised you. He's now passed.
No, he's alive, but we haven't spoken in several years. We had he's just another one that's very angry, and he was very belligerent to me all the time. I'm not exactly sure why. I know he kind of drinks a lot, and that may have something to do with it, but he just was never reaching out to me, and when I did reach out to him, he was very angry, and so I told him that I was not going to talk to him anymore if he kept swearing at me, and he continued, so I stopped calling. So I haven't spoke to him in several years now.
If we could go back for just a minute, Janet asked a question in the middle of what I was trying to pursue, which is, I sense that even if it's true, about him being the doctor being your true father, and if you were to communicate with him, are you in a space to forgive him?
I kind of try my best to live my life without holding on to things like that. I don't hate him. I have to believe that everything was meant to be for a reason. Otherwise, it's way too hard to get through this life. I choose to believe that, because there's no other way to get through this life without thinking that. I choose to believe, and from what my spiritual experiences have been, that there is a higher power, and the only way to get off this earth plane, out of this school, if you will, is to go out without hate and without bitterness, without anything but love. So I kind of like put my thoughts into his children, which would be my siblings, I guess. And how awful for them if they had to find out that at this point, right? So that's kind of where it stops me from confronting him. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, and I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life. I just, if anything, maybe just the fact that I know, which now he very well might know if his daughter or brother have told him that I've reached out to him. So there's nothing I want from him. I mean, he raped my mother. It's not like I want a relationship with him. So
Right.
And I highly doubt he's ever going to tell me the truth of the reasons why. So, I don't even. I probably will never reach out.
Do you
There, it
siblings
looks like there's a brother. I have a half sister, I guess, with my mother, and then it looks like there's a brother and sister from my biological father, but I have not talked to either one of them.
Yeah, my brother did an ancestry, and I did one, and we don't seem like we're very closely related.
No.
So I'm going to come up with some money. I'm going to pay for.
Your mom was a swinger, anyhow.
Well, that was a hidden thing. We don't know that, but what I'm going to do is get both of them to get on ancestry.com, so we're in the same database and see. But you pointed out a very important fact. We have a man we suspect might have been my father, but with all the people doing it, it seems like it would show up already, going down their line, because it shows who you're related to, right? So this is ancestry.com, right? That's one I did, and you can pull it up because it's a big chart going who you're related to. So I wonder how we could do that. Yeah, I guess I'll do that the next step, next month or something. And then, but I imagine it's shocking to find out that the person you thought who was your father is not your father. How did you feel when you discovered that?
Well, I was just like, oh, she was telling the truth. I felt, I guess, more emotion towards my mother. And she's come to me in dreams. So I feel like she's still around. At least a piece of her energy is still around. So I think she is, she understands. But she recognizes that I know now. And it's not, I guess I don't really have like a ton of emotions about it, I guess. I am here to learn, and clearly my lessons are about relationships and love. That's very apparent through, I've had a lot of harsh love lessons with family, friends, boyfriends, husbands. So that's where my lessons lie, and I choose not to hold it against them and keep grudges and hate, because they all have reasons for doing what they did. I can see the reasons why, and I don't want to hold on to all of that. Whatever their lessons are, they'll have to deal with that, their karma, if you will, or whatever you believe in. So I just, I don't try to be the one to make the judgments or the punishment. I'm sure I have emotions when it first happens, but I actually wasn't that emotional about it. It had been sitting in my mind for quite some time. So I was just like, I'm kind of happy to know the truth, I guess. I mean, that's a pretty big win, just knowing the truth.
So, I guess what this immediately brings to mind is that, your children may have a grandfather, and that whoever is taking you are your children being taken too?
I believe they are, but I can't talk to either one of them about it. They get pretty upset. they've witnessed a lot of paranormal stuff, and it doesn't set great with them. They don't love it. My biggest concern right now, I think, is my granddaughter. She is showing some signs of being taken, and it's like every time she stays overnight with me, she gets the bloody noses, and I'm like, oh, yeah. And several times I've had them with her, and I've kind of concluded that the implant that, they put that implant in your nasal cavity to track you, I believe. I think that's a tracker. And I don't think that that they're taking it in and out or anything like that. I think that it just kind of activates when they do take you, and I think it causes irritation. So I think that's why I personally
needed nosebleeds. They had a show recently called Horse Girl, and she was being taken, and she had the continual nosebleed. But I've never getting my implant when I was about 4 years old, and I did not have a nosebleed, but I kept sneezing like I was trying to get something out. And so I was in kindergarten. So my mother kept me, I was 5. She kept me home from kindergarten because I couldn't stop sneezing.
You were the snot-nosed little kid.
Well, then a lot of times it creates sinusitis. So you wonder why a kid has runny nose all the time. So it's affected my health. But that was in the 1950s version. I think they even have better technology. They're not so detrimental to the person they're implanting. But I have also one behind my ear, which you referred to earlier. So there's one behind my ear. Yeah. So and then I had a reading one time. They said, "Oh, this one's tracking you. This one's protecting you from STDs and diseases." So, so one psychic said I had about 5 or 6 of them, and I went, "Oh, great." But anyway, she said, "No, there's none that you really need to remove." A lot of times the psychics will say, "We're going to remove them," but she said, "No, they're not hurting you. They're just, there to actually assist you in some levels." So I never wanted to get removed.
Yeah, what I discovered is when you are able, or I had them shattered by the paranormal team. They raised the energy so high that it kind of shattered them. And honest to God, oh my God, it felt so much better. I could breathe so clearly, and my neck didn't hurt, and I could move my arm. They took 3 out, or shattered 3, or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but I felt it. I felt amazing. And I think it was within a night or 2, it was back in. I'm like, well, I'm not going to keep going through this. I'm not going to have it in and out, because and I can feel it. I can totally feel it in my nasal cavity. I have felt it for years.
Think about our own efforts with, So we have animals we track, and if it stopped working, we would just pick up the animal again and replace it. So, I get through
exactly, yeah. Well, yeah. So I just don't worry about it anymore. I asked, the one in my neck was hurting me so bad, but now they must have moved it. It does not hurt at all. So I'm grateful for that. I actually took the one behind my ear out.
If they're monitoring you, you can monitor them back. You're in communication, and I'm saying that if they've got this channel, you might as well use it and directly tell them what you need and want and how they can help you.
Yeah, I've done that. I just feel like I think it's the grays that have the implants in, and they seem so I don't know, they seem like little scientists, I guess, to me. So yeah, I mean, as far as comfort, yes. Maybe I could ask now if I could drop some pounds. I'd be really happy with that. So maybe they could shed some light on.
That's a great thing to experiment with. That's the one to try.
You and I will ask our Grays to help us drop some pounds. That sounds good.
Yeah, I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, I mean, that is true. They did move the one implant. Like my neck, it was hurting so much all the time, and now it doesn't hurt. So I think they actually did move it. This was kind of interesting. Right around that same time, I got this rather large lump in one of my breasts. And I went to the doctor because it was so disturbing. It was kind of large. I'm not sure what it was. And she felt it, and she sent me right over to mammogram, and they can't see anything. There's nothing there. We've done ultrasound, mammograms, whatever, and there's nothing there. They can feel it, and they can't see it. And I'm like, I already know. Never mind. I'm like, I already know what it is.
It's organic, so it's not detectable to our X-ray type technologies. Yeah. So what did you say about the one behind your ear? You did something with was it your right ear or your left ear?
It was my right ear, and I picked it out because I could feel it. I could feel like a little lump, and maybe like the size of a couple sand granules. I just picked it until I picked it out. And
with your fingernail?
Yeah, I just kept picking at it, digging at it, and I finally just kind of got it out. And I was thinking that might be the voice to skull one, and it seemed like it did stop for quite a while, but now fairly recently I had another experience with that, so it might not have been that, but it just was a little, a couple sand granules size. And it was kind of
it's human technology, some of it's extraterrestrial technology, because you have the MyLab program and the extraterrestrials, and they have different technologies. So
yeah, I believe so. So I know that we are running short, and I thought I'd share one more thing with you, which maybe you guys can shed some light on this, because I have had a lot of really strange bird incidences throughout my life. It started more in my adulthood. So it kind of comes and goes in spurts. So in my mid-20s, I kept finding dead birds, in my mailbox, on my doorstep. I totally thought it was human doing, but then as years went on, I had more strange bird incidences. So in the last 3 years or less, I've had 2 hawks swoop down so close in between the apartment building and a tree, just the width of a regular city block or sidewalk, so just a few feet wide, swoop down, and I could have reached out and touched it. It swooped down and almost touched my dog and flew up in the tree, and then it just watched me. I took pictures of it. Twice that happened within 6 months apart from each other. Then I've had a robin flew straight at my head one day. I had, in the middle of the night, I was leaving a friend's house, and a bird flew right in her door, and it was the middle of the night. Birds usually aren't flying around at that time. A couple of times when I visited her house, a dead bird would end up in her backyard or on her back porch. I had a baby pheasant bird dead at my back porch one time. I found a baby bird dying in my hallway next to my apartment. I had an owl fly at me, which I thought this was probably gray ET, because something they would do, fly at me at night in my car and fly right in front of my windshield and then, take off. It was a huge white owl. So anyway, I've had all these and then I found the bird wings, removed off the bird on the sidewalk not far from my house. And then I found the bird's body laying in the street. So it was no blood, no nothing, just the wings on the sidewalk and the bird next to the curb in the street. And I don't know why I have so many weird bird things happening.
White owls exist in your part of the world? Is that a native species, the white owls?
I live in the middle of the city. There really is, like, robins, yes, blackbirds, like birds like that, pigeons, yes, but I don't know. I live in the city, like city, Dallas. I live.
Right. Well, I've seen owls close into civilization, but I just wondered.
Yeah.
The white owls are coast to coast. So what part of the world are you in? And that's usually typically a screen memory for an abduction. But we have 1 minute left, so I'm going to give it to you. What would you like to say in our final minute?
Yeah, sell your product if you have any.
Oh, no. I make organic lotion, but I am kind of busy with my 9-to-5 job to do it for more than just a handful of people. But that's it. I thank everyone for listening, and if anyone has anything they want to share with me, that would be great.
Excellent. So, yeah, you can write to us if you have any questions for Nikki. And, Nikki, I do encourage you to get your book written. And when you get that done, let's do another show, and I'll help you in any way, shape, or form to get that done, because you have a fascinating story, and it needs to be shared with the world.
And it's not only that; you've got a good heart. You exude kindness and love, and we want to help you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, Nikki. Thank you, Mad Painter. Thank you, Dr. Sasha.
Oh, thank you too. I appreciate it.